I am not big into politics whatsoever, but these days it's hard to log on to Facebook and Twitter without seeing some sort of post about President Trump. And I read an interesting article about an old movie called The Dead Zone from 1983. And this article was all about the similarities between the character of Greg Stillson in the movie and Trump. So, I read through the article. Interesting and stuff. And I compared a few clips from the movie to Trump's rallies as president and his campaign to become president in the first place. Very, very interesting. But I decided I'll go and check out the movie just to, have a look see. I am Rodney Stewart, your host, and of course this is The Dead Zone from 1983. And of course, I don't want this channel to go down the road of politics in any way, shape or form. It's not my thing. Barely interested in it at the best of times as far as I'm concerned. I'm living in Northern Ireland and whatnot, so President Trump and all that sort of stuff doesn't really affect me. But, yet. But, yes. I found that article interesting, and of course, I had to check the movie out, and you know what? It's from 1983. It's directed by David Cronenberg. Now, I've only seen bits and pieces of a few of his movies, and up to this point, most of the stuff didn't really appeal to me, his sort of style. But this one here, absolutely brilliant. I enjoyed every last second of this movie. Of course, it's based on a Stephen King novel. Stars Christopher Walken, who is brilliant in this movie, and pretty much every film I've watched that man, and he's been very good in it. Brooke Adams, Tom Skerritt, Herbert Lones is in this. This is the first, in all honesty, Herbert Lones, this is the first time I've seen him in a movie where he wasn't playing Chief Inspector Dreyfus, is it you call him, from the Pink Panther movies? I think it's Dreyfus. I could be totally wrong. Anyway, I'm hoping that's right. Somewhere in the back of my head, I'm telling myself that's completely wrong. Martin Sheen is in here, of course, as the character that brought my interest in it, Greg Stillson. So basically, in this movie, it's set in Castle Rock, of course, as most of the movies and stories are from Stephen King. And yes, John Smith, a young school teacher, is in love with his colleague. They're going to get married. They're in the dating stage of their relationship. He comes from a clean-cut Christian family, and they go for a roller coaster ride at the beginning of the film, and he starts to have this headache, and later he decides not to spend the night with her, because of his upbringing more than anything else. Good things is worth waiting for. But on the way home, he's involved in a car accident. A truck driver falls asleep behind the wheel, crashes the truck. The trailer comes off, sliding down the road, takes his car out. We skip from there to 5 years later. He wakes up in a hospital underneath the care of Herbert Lones' character, and discovers that he's been in a coma for 5 years. So, as the story progresses, he starts to realise he's developed these psychic abilities where, if he touches someone, he can see their future or something that's happening. And the first example of that is a nurse that's working on the institute where he's woken up at, and he sees the vision of her daughter in a burning room in a house, and he screams at her, "Go save your daughter, it's not too late." And it goes from there on to a few more cases of touching people. Like there's a whole TV interview situation whenever the story starts getting out, where he does the same on a reporter there, and he calls up things from his personal life freaks the guy out. Eventually, a sheriff comes to his home asking for his help, and he gets in through that there, involved in the hunt for a murderer, and the sheriff can't figure it out at all. This murderer seems to be one step ahead of them at every turn, and it turns out, through Christopher Walken's character's help, John Smith, that it was actually the sheriff deputy that was the murderer that they were looking for. So when that's all sorted out, he ends up getting shot in the process of capturing this guy. Well, the guy takes his own life before they get a chance to apprehend him, but while he ends up getting shot by the deputy's mother during the raid in the house, basically, and afterwards he moves to another town, and we see this promotional sign going up across the road for Greg Stillson, running for the Senate. And that's pretty far into the film before Greg Stillson turns up in this one, but Smith goes back to teaching, and he teaches from the house. He doesn't want to leave the house because, for his own safety and other people's safety and whatnot. He wants to forget this whole part of his life, this whole new part of his life, the whole psychic ability thing, and he believes that, if he stays in his own home in a controlled situation, nothing bad's going to happen. But this guy turns up at the house asking for help with his son. He's got political entanglements that makes Smith eventually cross paths with Greg Stillson, and of course his ex-girlfriend. I should have said this earlier on in the review. The girl that he was supposed to marry, Sarah, the 5 years that he was in a coma, she actually moved on, got married and had a kid. So, they reconnect during the movie as well, and she ends up, her and her husband are part of Greg Stillson's campaign to get to the Senate. This guy that comes to get his help with his son has a connection to Stillson as well, so everything starts to interconnect throughout the movie, and things is going great along with this kid. He's helping, teaching him and trying to bring him out of his shell, and eventually he gets a premonition that the kid is going to drown in an accident while out playing hockey on the ice, and he rushes over to the house and he freaks the father out basically, and you can't take your son, he's going to die, and the son's getting all worked up as well because this guy's been completely normal up to this point, and he's freaking out, and you're going to die if you go to this here. And the kid believes him. He decides he's not going to go. The father also says that he's going to cancel the event he had set up for his kid and his friends to go play this game of hockey, ice hockey. And when Smith leaves, the father comes to the room and he's like, okay, let's go. We only said that to get rid of your man there. And the kid's like, he just turned his back, he's not interested. So we skip from that to later on, where Smith is reading, he sees a headline in the newspaper that 2 kids have died in an accident, obviously the accident he had foreseen. So he gets on the phone, calls the house, and the kid answers. So he now realises that, he gets hold of Herbert Lones' character at a point in the movie, and he's like, there's part of that premonition that I couldn't see 100%, called the Dead Zone's the title of the movie, and the book The Dead Zone is that piece of the premonition where we discover that just because you see in the future doesn't mean it's going to happen that way. You can change it. This is proven that. Just previous to this, he comes across Stillson again, at a rally, and Stillson's got through shaking hands with people, and Sheik Smith's hand, he gets a premonition of Stillson at the height of his power. He's become the president of the United States, and he's forcing the vice president to, there's a computer where there's a readout where you have to put your handprint on it, and it's basically the button to launch the nuclear arsenal. And he sees this premonition of Stillson doing this if he raises to power, so he decides, through Herbert Lomb's help, even though Herbert doesn't realise what he's planning at this point, but Stillson, who had a premonition, well, not a premonition, but he's seen a part of Herbert Lomb's past, his character's past, at the beginning of the film, which turned out to be accurate as well. He knows he was, when he was a child, he was in the war, got separated from his mother and whatnot, so he brings up the idea of, if you could travel back in time and assassinate Hitler, if you knew then what you know now, would you kill him? And Herbert Lones' character is, he says, I'm a healer, I'm a doctor, I'm sworn to help people, so I would kill the son of a bitch, basically. He's like, what's Hitler? If you killed him before that there, you could save a lot of lives, essentially. And that's when Smith decides that he's going to take out Stillson before he gets to the seat of power as the president. And in his mind, if I kill him off, that's going to be it. He's not going to get to press the big red button and launch the nuclear arsenal. So the film ends off basically with him perched in the town hall up in like a balcony waiting for this rally to begin, and everything starts to come together at the end of the movie beautifully, by the way, I have to say. At a certain point in the film, I was kind of thinking to myself, okay, at the beginning he had this headache on the roller coaster, and then the car crash, the coma for 5 years. Obviously this gift of, the psychic gift was manifesting before this crash, and was that actually a real major point? Should that have even happened in the film? The car crash, the coma and whatnot. But it all starts to make sense in this final scene of the movie, because the ex-girlfriend, who moved on, got married and had a child as part of the campaign of Stillson, she ends up on the stage with him, with the child in her arms. He doesn't realise that at this point, and he jumps up with a gun to take him out, and she screams his name, and he freezes just long enough for the bodyguard of Stillson to take a shot at him, and knocks the gun out of his hand, shoots him in the stomach. And Stillson, his first reaction is to not just hide from Smith with the gun, but to actually lift the child out of her arms and use it as a shield. Smith falls from the balcony. He's about to die. Stillson runs over, grabs hold of him. Who are you? What are you doing here? Sort of thing. And through that touch, Smith gets the premonition, the new premonition of the new future that's just happened. And Stillson never gets the power because he used a baby as a human shield to protect himself from a gunman. And in the premonition, you see him lifting the gun, and you see the headline of the photograph of him with the child, using the child as a human shield, and the title says "No Future for Stillson." And you hear the gunshot and the blood splatters across the headline. And we cut back to this point in the rally. Smith's on the floor and he smiles at him and he's like, you know what, it's over and done with, you're finished. And basically the film finishes off there. The girlfriend was over and kind of hugs him and they have a moment, and then cut the credits. Absolutely fantastic movie, but again, politics, not my thing. And if it wasn't for that random Facebook post, that article about Trump and the similarities between him and Stillson, I probably never would have watched this movie. So I'm glad I read that.